All right, let's get started. Well, welcome to the June live chat with Marcia Gohman. Today, we are very excited to have her on the line. She is with NTN Northwest, and in just a moment, we will be able to chat with her and ask her questions, and she'll be able to answer all those questions for us. Before we get started, I just want to remind you guys of how to chat in your questions. So if you do have questions, there is a chat functionality on the bottom of your screen. You may have to hover just a little bit for that chat box to pop up, but once it pops up, feel free to chat in your questions and I will jump in and make sure those questions get answered for you. Every month we have one of these live chats that will allow you to ask questions of different experts that we bring on board. So today we have Mike Stout. Mike will be hosting our live chat with Marcia, and then we will go ahead and get started. So let's get started. Mike, Marcia, go ahead and take it away.
Well, April, thanks again for moderating. Marcia, welcome to the show. And why don't we just start with your story? How did you become involved with NTN? And you don't have to give us all the time frame.
Okay, well, I've been with NTN. Yeah. I've been with NTN forever. In the mid-90s, I was a landlord who used NTN to do my screening for my property. I had about 66 units. And I decided I was doing that. And basically, I contacted NTN and let them know I was available to hire. And they were like, well, that's great. We're not actually hiring now. And I was like, okay, fine. So I basically hounded them once a week for a month, or maybe two, until they thought I was a stalker. And then they finally let me come in for an interview and decided to hire me.
Crazy, and all true.
Yeah. Persistence pays, you know.
It does. Wow. And boy, have we been all over the I wouldn't say the world, but not really the world, all over the industry places over the years. Been fun. Been a fun ride.
It's been a great ride. I'm really glad I found NTN. This has been just a heck of a way to make a living and also get paid to travel and talk to people all over the world. So, well, all over the United States. It's been a crazy ride.
World.
I just did. I said world. You know, my world, the United States. What can I?
You know, spots, changing industry standards, etc., is your area. So,
yeah.
Why don't you give us your expert opinion? Tell us what's going on, and let's talk about it.
Okay, so Oregon basically is always wanting to be on the cutting edge, or at least following California. So recently what they did in Oregon is they instituted statewide rent control. Yay us, we're the first state with statewide rent control. So, and they also did some other things to us. They played with how we can use notices and how we can do, the rent control has to do with rent increases. So in Oregon, we're now capped at 7% plus CPI. The tenant coalition originally wanted 2% plus CPI, but we were able to get them to back off on that because we wouldn't even be able to pay the tax increases, which they did immediately after this passed, of course. They increased property taxes.
Well, of course.
Of course. And they also made it so you can't write off your second property unless it fits in a bunch of different carve-outs. I mean, gotta love the state of Oregon. So we've got a rent cap statewide. In Portland, the city of Portland, they've been leading this charge. So about a year ago or two, they introduced the whole rent control. And then they also introduced the idea of relocation. So if you give a tenant notice that they have to move, you must pay them to leave. Okay, so in Portland, if you have a studio, you need to pay the tenant $2,900. If it's a one bedroom, it's, yeah. $2,900 for a studio to get them to move. It's $3,300 for a 1-bedroom. It's $4,200 for a 2-bedroom and $4,500 for 3 or more bedrooms. So in the rest of the state of Oregon, this new bill is SB 608 that just got passed this spring. It specifies 1 month's rent rather than going where Portland went with giving us, there's no place I know that's renting a studio for $2,900. Give me a break. Yeah.
So this payment, this I don't know, whatever you want to call it, does this, what if
relocation?
Is it so they go, well, I don't want to pay rent this month, so I want you to relocate me, or is this like a no cause?
They changed how we can use no cause. So it's if you give them a termination notice. So it can be in the city of Portland, it can be it's actually no cause or with cause. In Oregon now, we can only use no cause notices during the first year of tenancy. After that, it has to be for cause. And they've given us a list of what our causes could be, like I want to rent the property to a family member, or I want to demolish the property and build something else. And so as long as you have a good for cause, then you get to give them the 90-day notice, because that's the other thing they did. No more 30-day notices. It's 90 days notice, and you have to pay them the relocation fee when you give them the notice. So here you have to move, and here's money so you can move. And this all came about because there were several big landlords. Portland, the rental industry is just hot right now. And what happened in the years before this all came into play was that there were several big complexes in downtown Portland that raised the rent 25% or more on 100 people, and they all ended up in the street because they couldn't pay the rent. So the rent cap and all the termination notice changes and all of this is to fight that. But it was like 3 properties did this. Okay. It wasn't all landlords. Okay. And it's affected now it's infected the entire state. And it's really frustrating. I attended a meeting on this recently, and a lady stood up and she said, I got into this business to build my retirement, to provide good housing for people. And this is the first time I've ever had to think of myself as a bad guy. You guys are telling me I'm the bad guy. And I don't even know how to respond to that.
Right.
So that's where we are. Yeah, it's crazy out here.
Insane. Are you seeing or hearing talking? I can't remember if it's there or not, but like in the Seattle area, some of this you can't do background checks anymore, or you can do them, but only after you decided to offer them a conditional acceptance. Then you can check them out to see if they have any kind of a background.
Yeah, we're seeing a little bit of that. In 2014, Oregon changed how we can use eviction and criminal history. That we can still use it, but we're limited. With evictions, they have to be filed in the last 5 years, and the landlord must have won the case. So if the case was stipulated or dismissed, then you get to call the landlord who filed it and get a negative tenant reference. In Seattle, they basically limited your criminal history quite a bit. And the city of Portland, of course, is looking at something like that right now. Basically, what they want is a checklist, and you have to give points and take points away for certain types of records. It's ugly. It's ugly. And I've got landlords selling properties, as quickly as they possibly can if they're in the city of Portland. And I just talked to a big investor who was a client of mine. I'm saying was a client of mine, because he sold 2 big complexes in downtown Portland. One of them was brand new. He just finished building it. And he sold them both at a loss and said, you know what? I'm leaving Oregon. I was born and raised here, but I'm out. And I'm never going to invest in Oregon again. So all these new laws, they were meant to protect the tenants who fear, rent raises and evictions. But what they're actually ending up doing is getting landlords the heck out of the state. Thank God we also represent most of Washington, where the laws are changing, but not as drastically as they are in Oregon.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I started following these things, and we started trying to track them. Not nearly as closely as you are, but I'm still amazed after reading all the doing the research I did. It's amazing.
Right. Well,
and then I think
you get my emails where it's like, okay, everybody write in or call your legislature, do it now. And we're fighting this tooth and nail. But with the city of Portland, I stopped going to those meetings because the landlords stand up and try to tell their story. And I kid you not, these people on the board there are playing on their phones. They're not listening to landlords at all. So the tenants get up and start yelling about how we kept all the deposit, we charged too much rent, and we should just, I kid you not, they said, we should just provide housing. Isn't that what we're supposed to do? What?
Wow. I'm sorry, what? Yeah. Everybody.
And there's this lady called Chloe Udali who's sitting up there and nodding. That's exactly right, honey. They should just provide housing. You shouldn't have to pay for it. What? Oh, are we in Russia now? What the hell?
I'm not familiar with this. What country is this again?
Yeah. It's the People's Republic of Portland. It's just crazy out there. So, we're fighting it as best as we can, and the rest of us out in the rest of the state are just hanging on tooth and nail. And, what I am seeing is that now they've limited the use of no-cause notices to just the first year. So after that, you have to use the for-cause notice, and you have to have a specific reason that falls under their purview. So what I'm seeing is landlords are getting very, very cautious with who they're going to rent to, because it might be pretty hard to get them back out once you get them in.
I'm just thinking, as if disparate impact didn't cause a still muddy mess. Now we're adding, just fueling the fire. Now you have to really think about who you can and can't rent to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gotten tricky. And, there's ways to work within these laws to a point. The new state bill 609, we can work with that. And it could have been 608, sorry. It could have been a lot worse. It was headed off by the Speaker of the House here in Oregon, who's been going she tried this last year and we defeated it. So this year, however, she had enough support because we have a kind of a lopsided legislature right now. It's very, very liberal. There should be a balance, and there's just not. So they're just doing everything they want right now. And she knew she was going to get this through, but she did take time to call a representative of the rental owners associations, and she actually listened to him. So it could have been way, way worse. The tenant coalition, they're furious at this bill. They think it didn't take it far enough, which is just scary.
Yeah. No free rent just yet, right?
Right. Yeah, it's keep Oregon weird, right?
Well, you said it.
Yeah. It's a good thing the state is so darn beautiful. Although we have been, we have been talking about buying a sailboat and going to live in Galveston, so keep an eye out for that.
Oh. Yeah. Sounds fun.
Yeah. I think we'd miss these Pacific Northwest summers where it's barely 70 and we're all like, oh, it's so hot.
Oh boy. Fun times. Well, April, does anybody have any questions or anything they've mentioned?
Nope, no questions at this time, Mike.
I don't know. Is there anything else that we haven't really hit on? I mean, that I don't want to keep rehashing the same thing we can. But Marcia, anything else you want to say?
I don't know where all your people are coming from, but I hope they pay attention to what's happening in their legislature, and they don't let stuff like this go on. It takes a concerted effort. You have to really pay attention. You've got to work with your rental owners associations and lead the charge and do the letters and do the calls and show up when they have hearings. It just takes a lot of effort. When I got into this business, I never thought I'd qualify myself as an activist. And here I am. You know?
That's just scary.
Hey, Mike, we do have a question that came in. It says, what advice is Marcia giving her clients, especially in regards to acceptance criteria?
Well, what I'm telling them is, take the time, make the calls, verify everything extremely carefully. Deposits, they haven't done anything to cap deposits yet, and I'm suggesting getting at least a month and a half deposit, if not more. And that's about all we can do is make sure that when we get people in, we're getting good people who will hopefully stay for a long time, that we won't have to worry about relocating in the future.
Good.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Is there a question?
Hi, you can
Sure.
go ahead and ask your question.
Oh,
Do you know if these laws are in effect in the state of Arizona, like you described in Oregon?
No, I don't believe that they're in the state of Arizona. Regina would know more about that, or Mike. Is there anything like this happening in Arizona?
not that I'm aware of. They tried some. There's been some legislation trying to change screening, but at this point, it's not happening that I'm aware of. But
Okay.
we're seeing it. It's coming. That's why I wanted to have you on, because it's happened in your neck of the woods, which means that at some point it's going to happen, and all the rest of our necks of the woods, wherever that might be in the entire country. So
Yeah, I've already hearing about. Yeah, Washington is already considering statewide rent control. So is California. I've not heard of anything in Arizona, but there are other states looking at us and going, "Hey, look what they did. That's so cool." And it's like, no, stop it.
right.
So, yeah, and if they're trying to limit that stuff, you gotta go meet the legislators, shake their hand, look them in the eye, and explain why this is a bad idea. And some of them will actually listen. It just takes shaking an awful lot of hands to get to somebody who will listen.
I think it's great advice.
Yeah, if you need help on letter writing campaigns, send me an email.
We should be sure to share that email with everyone.
Yeah. Dear Senator, please do not do this to me. And this is why.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well,
Right. If there are
I don't
any
hear any-
last questions, feel free to chat them in. All right, looks like we do have a question. It says, are there any other law changes you see coming in Oregon?
At this time, I'm going to say no. The city of Portland, again, is working on really making screening a tough deal in the city of Portland. And we're going to have to wait and see. They're still in final changes on that. There's a lot of arguing going on. But for the state, one of the things the Speaker of the House did do is promise that she would not mess with these rules that they just put in place for 2 years. So I don't know if we can trust her as far as we can throw her, but she did give that agreement verbally, of course, not in writing anywhere. So At this time, I think we're just also stunned and trying to deal with all this stuff. I know the tenant coalition is howling that they want a deposit, a cap on deposits. I know in some other states you have to actually put the deposit in an escrow account, and that way the tenant can be assured of getting it all back, I guess. So they're looking at things like that, but I don't think we'll see anything else until 2020. That's the hope anyways.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, big time, and toes.
Don't hold your breath.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. That looks like, oh, it looks like we have another one. Are you foreseeing a mass exodus of independent rental owners due to these changes?
Yeah. The 1041 exchange business is booming right now. There are people just as quickly as they can get them done. But with these new laws, because you have to give the tenant 90 days, so let's say you sell your property, you have to have an offer in hand, then you can give the tenant notice. They have 90 days, and you get to pay relocation. So even if you sell the place, you're still paying relocation, and you have to tell the seller they can't have possession of it for 90 days. It's a killer.
Somebody really thought this one through well. I can see. The more you tell me.
You know, it's a really badly written law. There are lawyers all over the state of Oregon who are now making bank because you do the notice wrong, you don't have your qualifying reason correctly spelled out. You know, there's all kinds of pitfalls for landlords here, and I think it was specifically designed that way. That's the scary part.
Yes.
Awesome. That looks like the end of our questions.
Awesome. Well, April, once again, thank you for moderating. Marcia, thanks for being our guest. And
anytime.
Everybody else, let us know what topics you want to hear, and have great weekends.
Thanks
Thanks
Mike.
for having me, Mike.
Thanks, Marcia.
You bet.